In the spirit of gaining some time, I ask all the panel members to join me at the same time, rather than one by one. Let me first thank the organizers, all the distinguished guests present for inviting myself and UNDP to come here, and to say that we have a really distinguished panel here. And I've been monitoring the questions, and the top questions which this panel will answer by the end, at the moment says, can you really expect to make money with inclusive business? By the time this panel ends, I'm sure that question will be answered, because we have really strong companies here which are just doing this. So let me quickly run by our panelists. So we have Mr. Ayala, which I don't think deserves much of an introduction in this setting, but he's the member of the chairman and chief executive officer of the Ayala Corporation, as part of many international boards and organizations. He's the chairman of the Harvard Business School Asia Pacific Advisory Board and a member of the Harvard Global Advisory Council. The second member of our panel is Mr. Francisco Welirang, back Frankie, as we know him, which is the director of the PT Indofood Groups in Indonesia. He's also the the head of the permanent committee on food security at the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, member of National Steering Committee, Global Environmental Fund. Then we've got Cesar Vela Bassan, which is Chief of Products of Mi Banco, Banco de la Microempresa in Peru, with 19 years of experience in microfinance. And then last we have Mr. Arturo Rodriguez Jalili, which is the co-founder of the CEMEX, which is the CEMEX, Business Development Director for CEMEX in the Philippines. CEMEX is a Mexican company. So let me just say a few words to open up, and then give the floor to our panelists for the first, each one's going to take an initial 10 minutes, and then we'll do a second round and bring more questions for the audience in that sense. Why is it important to discuss about inclusive business now? And why do we need it to scale this up? As Erico mentioned, with the agreement last September in New York, unanimous agreement in New York by all member states of the United Nations on the Sustainable Development Goal as the new development framework that replaces the Millennium Development Goals, we have now 17 goals, which are much more complex and expand a much larger area of society than the original 8 Millennium Development Goals. Some of these goals speak directly and much stronger to the core business operations of the private sector. You know, you have goals on employment, you have goals on industrializations, you have goals on consumption, which are much more convergence to business strategies and operations. The estimation is there is a $2.5 trillion gap to finance the Sustainable Development Goals. This gap is not going to be filled in by the private sector with CSR or with philanthropy. The only way the private sector can truly maximize its own contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals is if it increases and it scales the convergence between its core business and strategies and the development agenda that all governments in the world, following a very extensive global consultation which included the private sector, have agreed upon. Inclusive business provides a unique opportunity as a proven, as we heard from Erico, a proven and tested approach that generates that convergency. But we have to grow. We have to achieve a degree of scale on inclusive business in the next 15 years, which is the time span of the Sustainable Development Goals, by which at the end of this time, we can be in a position that we no longer need to call this inclusive business. We just have to refer as business, because most business will somehow have that $5 trillion bottom of the pyramid in their radar screen. The other important aspect of the Sustainable Development Goals, it is for the first time, is a universal development agenda. What do I mean by that? The Millennium Development Goals was a northern-south. So developed countries were financing an agenda of development in developing countries. The new framework applies to every country in the world, to the Philippines, to Japan, to the United States. Yesterday in Istanbul, where I'm based, there was a very large meeting about the Sustainable Development Goals in the context of the G20, and a report was launched, and the report asked the question, are the rich countries ready for the Sustainable Development Goal? And the report concluded that they are not. With the growing inequality gaps within rich countries, with the consumption patterns of rich countries, with the production patterns of rich countries, that they are really not serving as a model for development anymore. Some of the greatest innovations, some of the greatest new development models are coming from the traditional developing countries. As we've seen with Eric examples, all of those companies are developing country companies. So the conclusion is, as we start the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals on January next year, we are all developing countries from now on. The question is, who is going to take the opportunity? Who is going to facilitate the private sector to incorporate the concepts necessary to implement the Sustainable Development Goals? And inclusive business is at the forefront of that. So let me bring it, Mr. Ayala first. Your company has several business models which can qualify as inclusive business. We've heard a lot already today on Manila Water, and I know you can expand it a little bit more, but it would also be good if you can talk of some of the other business that you have, including some new higher education business loans that you are designing with the Asia Development Bank. So I'll give you the floor for 10 minutes to talk about how you are making money, answer the question, and being inclusive at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just tackle it from two angles. The first is the whole concept of capitalism, I think, is beginning to change. Capitalism, as we know, has driven the global economy, but more and more, you're looking at capitalism that just doesn't grow GNP, that also has a way of taking not just a few, but many with the growth of the country. And so there are changes taking place there. On the other hand, on the corporate level, you've got people increasingly wanting to reach out and touch bigger markets. And in emerging markets like ours, particularly here in the Philippines, the moment you reach out to touch more people, you're naturally reaching lower income groups. These two ideas are coming together. I'm a great believer in the capitalist system. I'm a believer in the for-profit. And I do believe that it can be used to address some of the social development needs of the country. So those two ideas are very powerful ones, using the capitalist model, the for-profit model, to address social development needs. And it was many years ago that we, as a group of companies, decided that we wanted to continue to be relevant to the Philippines. And if we just dealt with a small community of buyers of products and services, we would not be making an impact on the country. And so we challenged ourselves within our group, how can we move from our traditional small market to engage broader customer groups, empower them, and make them part of our economy and the country. And that led to a lot of thinking on the shared value concept that's led to an Ayala now across the group that touches customers at whole different price points than in the past. Manila Water is a great example. It was a public utility that was bidded out by the government. We won one part of the concession, And we had to find a model to basically deliver products and services to lower income groups that traditionally our group had not touched. They've done a remarkable job, the management group there. They've pooled resources together, did communal billing at the barangay level, used members of the barangay community to lay out the pipes that then led to the kind of services that the company provided. There was an inclusive effort in bringing the community hand in hand to the economic equation. So we've embraced it across the group. On the telecom side, I don't need to explain to everyone how prices have fallen in terms of mobile handsets and communication needs and the smaller and smaller amounts needed to be able to open an account on a telecommunication company and pay in small doses. In housing, our group once upon a time had just one brand, Ayala Land, the premium brand at the housing development side. Nowadays, we have 5 brands within the Ayala Grand Group, premium, middle, and some at the very end, which are socialized housing. That market is massive and greatly needed, and we'll be able to adjust our technology to cater to that market. The list goes on. Education has been a great need in our country. Essentially, there's been a private sector providing education, but it's been a small component. The public sector is really taking care of it. And we challenged ourselves in our group and said, why, if there is a tremendous need at this level, can't we fill it? And we had conversations with the Department of Education. They allowed us to put a for-profit model in a sector that was traditionally catered to only by the public sector. And we started a project to start putting schools together with Pearson from the UK to address a need that was there. People are willing to pay for schooling of a certain caliber. We put a strong emphasis on English and the focus on employment after high school, and there's been a massive take-up. So I believe that, bottom line, private sector solutions can be found to address social development needs. There are many more examples, and happy to continue dialoguing about them as we go on. But let me just say one last thing. I think our friends from the IFC and the UN have come up with this sustainable development model. The UN, I think, has just very recently come up with a set of criteria of what qualifies as a sustainable organization or economy. They've identified the elements of it, and we ourselves have embraced it within the group. We no longer just submit statements to the SEC as required by the financial regulators, but we now include a sustainable report as part and parcel of our corporate responsibility. It gives a much richer picture of the institution and puts a focus using metrics under global standards of what is necessary for an institution to be contributory rather than pull away from the needs of an economy at this time. Thank you very much.
Let me go to Pak Frankie, and in the foods in Indonesia, and let me thank Pak for coming today and the Asia Development Bank for facilitating your arrival. Your company is one of the biggest food processing companies with an annual turnover of about $6 billion US. In the agriculture sector, you touch a lot small farmers. So it'll be interesting to hear how do you include in your supply chain those small farmers, and how do you include them both as inputs as well as on the outputs of the products that you have. So it will be an opportunity for all of us to learn how's that going. Thank you.
Thank you. The inclusive business that we have, we do have the downstream inclusive, which is the supply, which is practically the agriculture from the farmers. We have two sides, which is the plantation and the soft crops, which we said, which is the horticultures like potatoes, shallots, cassavas, this type of product. Today, with the soft crops, we relate ourselves directly to around 6,000 farmers. How does it drive? Basically, is that we need a continuous supplies, and we want to be exact. And the only way that we need to go directly to the farmers. And farmers are merely that where their income is very, very low. So we are not going through the traders, but we go directly. There we like to improve the yield of the product, and also we try to educate the quality of the product. That is how we drive our inclusive business. So by then, the income at the farmer level would be higher. I think that's the basic. So the drive is really based probably from the competition. Competition, and you are creating buying power. I think that is the downstream. In the plantation, the same things through the plasma. Upstream then would be the market itself. In the market, then we see the small and medium enterprises that, like the noodle pushcart and all. This kind of group that we collect them together, and how can we bring them upwards on their income? That's how we. So inclusively, today we are relating ourselves to around 55,000 pushcart only for wet noodles. So and bread companies and martabak, this kind we directly relate ourselves to them, and we directly supply them, and we educate them how to bring up, how to market them their own product, and we do all the supplies of their raw materials. I think that's the two ways that we, the basic, the inclusive that come up out of that. There is a business innovation changes due to competition. That's number one. Number two, then we are creating buying power, new buying power. So that's how we relate ourselves. That's how the inclusive business that we have at this moment. Thank you.
Frank, can you talk a little bit about your... You were telling me this morning a little bit about the onion, how you've been working with the onion business, because this is an interesting, when your company's ecosystem is moving from the farmers to actually creating a little SMEs, and if you just describe that a little bit would be great.
Yeah. Originally the onion, which is the shallot onion, we need is a fried onion. We need fried onion for our product. So basically from the farmer originally, then we developed within the area a new enterprise, home industries, which is frying the onion. That's the first. That relation is created, and we buy the fried onion. At the same time, the enterprise, we educate not only for the fried onion is not only for our product, but they can sell and bottle them up. I think today you see a lot of fried onion in the bottle. From the relation of the farmers, which is originally that we tied them up, and they have a good production, and we relate them with the small enterprise. From the small enterprise, now we are not with the farmer, but we go with the small enterprise for the fried onion. I think that's a cycle that we build, and throughout this change, we create another buying power. I think that's how we do, and we also have for our snack like the soya beans, and we're making the tempeh, and in fact we relate the soya bean farmer with the tempeh small industries, and we are buying them and making up our snack. I think that's how we try to relate continuously, and that will be a full direct change with the industries. I think that's how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you. let's move on to Mr. Cesar. So Cesar has traveled all the way from Peru, the country is going to take on the chairmanship of the APEC. We're very grateful that you're here, and we would like to thank the Inter-American Development Bank for arranging for you to come. So Mi Banco, right, it has a portfolio of 2.34 million US dollars. It has active 960,000 clients. It provides loans on an average loan of $2,400. 48% of its clients are women, and the minimum loan that it gives is $100. You know, I'm particularly pleased to have Cesar here with us at a personal level, because part of what Mi Banco is today is a merger between a NGO project in the early 90s from an organization that I used to work for called CARE, which then became a microfinancing institution who then has been bought in the end by the credit group and merged with Mi Banco. You have a lot of women, you know, in your group, and working with the bottom of the pyramid and working with women always presents some challenges in terms of what do you complement to make sure that your core business is fully viable, right? So it would be interesting if you can tell us what are the trainings, what are the support systems that Mi Banco has in place that allows the business that gets your loan to be successful. And for those that don't understand Spanish, Cesar is going to speak Spanish. You all have a little translator in front of you. Now's the time for you to put that in and listen to Cesar in Spanish. He's been listening translation from English. Now it's payback time from him to all of us, all of you. I understand Spanish.
Ok. Gracias, Marcos, y gracias al BIP y a los organizadores que me han permitido estar presente, cruzar el Atlántico y estar con ustedes. Mil disculpas que tenga que obligarles a poner los auriculares. Una de las virtudes que Dios no me dio es el manejo de los idiomas. Pero bueno, nos podemos comunicar, nos podemos entender. Yo tendría en poco 10 minutos muchas cosas que decirles, muchas cosas que comentarles. Nosotros somos un banco que venimos con una historia de algo más de 20 años, vinculado siempre al segmento de la base de la pirámide. Y cuando nacimos y durante el tiempo que transcurrieron los años, entendimos algo muy importante y que hoy día muchos o todos los que estamos acá sabemos que hacer negocios en la base de la pirámide es muy rentable. Si alguien acá piensa que no, me preocuparía. Yo creo que hay muchísimas empresas, millones de empresas que pueden demostrar lo rentable que es hacer negocios en la base de la pirámide. Pero también hay muchísimas empresas, millones tantas, que fracasaron en el intento. Entonces, hay que entender un poco, Marcos, qué lleva al éxito, qué lleva al fracaso. Conversábamos de las mujeres, me comentabas algo de las mujeres, es que principalmente ellas fueron nuestro origen. Nosotros cuando nacimos hace más de 20 años, realmente tenemos una historia de más de 60, pero realmente 20 años son el trayectoria del banco. Nacimos básicamente para dar créditos a las mujeres que sufrían violencia familiar en las zonas periurbanas de las ciudades más grandes de Perú. Y fueron las mujeres nuestro motivo nacimos vinculados a una ONG, CARE Internacional, ACP, pero luego esto fue básicamente evolucionando porque entendimos que la familia es al que tenemos que integrar. Las mujeres principalmente fueron nuestro factor y las mujeres son muy buenas pagadoras. Ya decimos en los créditos solidarios que tenemos que un grupo de mujeres pagan bien, un grupo de hombres con mujeres más o menos y un grupo de hombres no pagan el crédito. Pero vinculamos esto porque hay algo importante que yo quisiera comentarles. ¿Qué hemos aprendido en estos años? Que el éxito para hacer negocios en la base de la pirámide, como en cualquier otro segmento, pero elementalmente en la base de la pirámide, no es difícil, es exigente. Es exigente porque nos exige o nos obliga a tener constante innovación en lo que hacemos. Si no hacemos innovación permanente de nuestros procesos, de nuestros productos, de nuestra forma de hacer el negocio, en pocos años estamos fuera del mercado. Porque quisieron hacer negocios de una manera común, convencional, como lo hicieron otros y como el éxito de otros podría ser el éxito mío. Y no necesariamente. Por ejemplo, un caso muy específico. Cuando hacemos negocios de microfinanzas, decimos, hay que capacitar a las familias, al empresario, al microempresario, porque cuando yo lo capacito, voy a lograr que él pueda traer más negocios al banco. Va a crecer su negocio y me va a hacer más fiel. Entonces, en el tema de la capacitación, de cursos, aprendimos, por ejemplo, que esos cursos tradicionales que damos a los microempresarios de auditorios, de gabinetes, era una inversión muy amplia, muy pomposa, de mucho dinero, pero de auditorios vacíos. Y nuestros microempresarios no tenían ni el tiempo ni la capacidad académica de ir a escuchar una charla de capacitación. Entonces, cuando uno entiende su negocio, conoce su cliente, sabe que ese servicio no era lo que él está esperando. ¿Qué hicimos? Hace ya más de una década, un poco más, buscamos que nuestros oficiales de créditos, los que van a comercializar nuestros productos, sean nuestro canal, nuestro vehículo de capacitación al microempresario. Porque a mí me interesa que el microempresario se capacite, tenga técnicas de comercialización, tenga técnicas de cobranza, manejo de inventarios, etcétera, etcétera. Entonces, pero no lo podía hacer académicamente ni tenerlos en un salón reunidos, ellos viven el día a día. Nuestro asesor, el oficial, fue capacitado para esa labor. Y eso hoy en día ya muchos lo hacen. Entonces ya nos imitaron y hasta nos mejoraron. Busquemos otra alternativa. Hace unos años, menos años, estamos desarrollando convenios con las mejores universidades de Perú para llevar a estas personas, a los estudiantes de sus últimos ciclos, a capacitar a nuestros clientes en sus negocios. Eso está siendo también exitoso. Seguramente nos van a copiar y nos van a mejorar porque eso es parte de los negocios. Entonces tenemos que ir pensando qué otra cosa nueva tengo que hacer. En el tema de las mujeres, nuestros clientes mujeres, los grupos solidarios, que lo vemos mucho acá en el Asia, lo he visto mucho en la India con mucha fuerza, lo sabemos, Bangladesh o Kenia, qué sé yo, en el África. Entendimos, por ejemplo, que las mujeres hay que capacitarlos también, pero una mujer espera una capacitación convencional sentada en un escritorio. Yo vi esto en México que me llamó mucho la atención. Una mujer que sufre violencia familiar, abandono y otros. ¿Qué es lo que más ella necesita en ese momento? Cuando ella rebaja sus pagos, o sea, incumple sus pagos y vamos a visitarle, le afecta mucho el tema emocional y le afecta mucho el tema de autoestima. Entonces, ¿qué es difícil para una organización llevar una tarde de reunión que ellas se congregan y llevarles una señora que les haga unos bonitos arreglos y les ponga bellas, porque son bellas? Entonces, el efecto emocional que esto traía al banco era muy grande. ¿Y cuánto cuesta eso? Entonces, son pequeños detalles que el banco o la organización en la cual ustedes trabajan puede encontrar vehículos de formación y de llevar un valor agregado al producto. Porque lo importante de esto, Marco, es llevar algo adicional que los otros no hacen y algo que trascienda. Entonces, ese es el vehículo. Nosotros éramos hace 20 años una empresa de unos cuantos millones de dólares que cabían en los dedos de la mano. Hoy en día somos una empresa de más de 2.500 millones de activos de dólares. Pero hemos trascendido, hemos hecho cosas diferentes, sí. Nos han imitado, nos han mejorado también. Tenemos que hacer cosas diferentes y constantemente estamos pensando qué hacer. Sí, ese es el reto. Yo si hubiera el espacio, de repente he excedido, me avisas, Marco, y comentarles otras experiencias más en los diversos rubros de inclusión financiera que nosotros hemos vinculado y cómo hemos desarrollado productos, porque no solamente servicios, sino el producto mismo tuyo, cómo desarrollarlo para que llegue de la manera como el cliente te lo espera. A veces diseñamos productos que el cliente no está esperando y que nosotros creemos si no conocemos a nuestro cliente. Cuando el producto llega adecuadamente y es masivo, es muy, muy bueno los negocios en la base de la pirámide.
Yo te lo doy la oportunidad de hablar de un producto en la segunda ronda. ¿Puede ser?
Ya,
Gracias.
ok.
Gracias. I just told him that I'm going to give him a chance. Oh, you have the translation. So. Let's listen to Arturo from Cemex, right? Cemex is one of the largest cement companies in the world. But in Mexico, you've developed a very interesting inclusive business model program on Patrimonio Hoy, right? In which you are taking and providing low-income housing to quite a considerable amount of people in Mexico. So how come a cement company put architectures in storage room in the slums in Mexico, make money with it, and give Mexico poor people one of the most important assets, which is a house? And I think you are considering doing the same in the Philippines. So explain Patrimonio Hoy a little bit, and how does that work for you?
Thank you very much, Marcos. And I would also like to take the chance to thank the Department of Trade and Industry for inviting us to share this program that we have. As just mentioned, Marco, the program is been there and it was created, defined in Mexico 17 years ago in the year 1998. And what we understood at that time is when we're trying to understand what are the characteristics and the needs of the low-income people, what we identify that because of the nature of our industry is the area in which could provide a positive impact, it was on the housing, understanding the housing needs of the low-income people and what are the characteristics of this, the behavior of this specific segment. And what we understood at that time, it was very interesting because what we have seen is that these people, because of the nature and the way that they are working, they were not having easy access or not access at all to the traditional financial system, one. Second, the incomes are not coming only from one member of the family. The incomes are coming from different members of the family and that they are contributing for the economy of the family at all, as a whole. And also, they were not capable to prove specific incomes, and sometimes were not having an area to build. Understanding that and understanding that they were not capable to get access to the financing, it was created this program, Patrimonio Hoy. Patrimonio Hoy, if we want to understand what is the meaning and how we understand Patrimonio Hoy, is a market-based solution because we went there and we understood what was happening on the properties for the housing needs of the low-income people to improve the quality of life. That is the program, what is the meaning of it. Now, how is working? Patrimonio Hoy is a program, microcredit programs that last for 70 weeks. I mean, they are making installments, but the program provides the following. First, it provides technical support, and I will explain what is relevant, microcredit and building materials. What we understood when we were checking the needs of this segment on the construction of the housing, we were thinking initially that they are building their own houses, but what we realized is that, yes, they are building, but not necessarily by themselves. They were also hiring other people to help them to build their houses, meaning that the quality of the houses that they were building not necessarily were the best, and the cost was not necessarily the best that they can get. So the program is providing technical support, tailor-made per family, to understand what are the needs for the housing and how they can grow through the time. Second, of course, it provides microcredit. Cemex finances up to 80% of the building materials, and also provides, of course, with the building materials itself. It's a program that provides savings to the people because they can build 3 times faster, and they can build with 1/3 of what they were costing. Why? Because other thing that we identified is that the supplies of the hauling of the materials, the building materials to their house, it was extremely expensive for them. And also, storing the materials were also an issue because they were the weather conditions or whatever were affecting the materials. And all that, when you put all that together, the savings are huge when you compare, and the system is providing those services for them. So the technical is there, the macrofinancing and the building materials, of course, is supplied by the network of CEMEX in Mexico. Fair to mention that the program started in Mexico, but now it's in 5 countries. It's in Dominican Republic, Colombia, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. Yeah. And, well, the one thing is it's accessible, the program. Probably is the most interesting part. Why is accessible? Because we are requesting, there are no formal requirements to get access. What we have is promoters that are on the field. They are going and they're checking directly with the families, and they're having a conversation. They're understanding where the incomes are coming from. No documents needed. It's just to go and check where the incomes are coming and which members of the family are contributing. And in the time of 4 to 5 days, we could decide if they could be a part of the program. How is working? CEMEX is involved in the 2 parts in the operation. CEMEX promotes and informs and supplies the technical support. Fair to mention that there is 1 architect dedicated to the family to understand their needs, and also then the last part is the network that, in this case, some specific name, Costurama, but it's the network of retailers. They are supplying the building materials to the people. The outcome at the end of the 70 weeks programs is one self-construct 10 square meter house. The possibility, because of the architect, is they can again continue with the program through the time to get another 10 square meters, and we have seen options in which they are building big houses. Well, just to mention that as of now, we have benefited close to 500,000 families, affecting positively close to 3 million people worldwide, I mean in those 5 countries that I'm mentioning. And we have built 3.7 million square meters under this scheme, and we have invested, well, it's been a program for $290 million US. Just the technical part is how it works. It's a 70 weeks program in which every week the people is putting $19, and after the 4th week, when they are achieving $75, is the first installment, and then like that, there are several times in the materials are being delivered to it. That's the technical side of the technique. And so far, I should say that, as we are mentioning here in the panel, we have 99% repayment rate, meaning they are very good payers, and that we're saying, so it's a very safe market and very, very inclusive business the way that we are seeing. Thank you, Marcos.
So, if you know, a summary of your 4 initial comments, all of your companies have dedicated attention specifically to the bottom of the pyramid. All of you have had to go beyond your normal core business. So you're a cement company, you end up having to give credit, technical assistance, you know, storage services to sell cement. Like, you know, why don't you just sell the cement, right? You know, Mi Banco does all kinds of trainings, so the loan that people take it works and gets repaid. So all of you have gone beyond your traditional core business in the services that you provided to the companies, so the inclusive business becomes successful. Do you do, as Erico mentioned earlier, inclusive business is going on without the government. But you are doing something that governments perhaps should be doing it, which would allow you to then do even more and serve even more people if you didn't have to provide the credit and do a bunch of other stuff that is not necessarily on your directly whole. So if we want to scale up inclusive business, what is the role of governments? How can governments help you? I know that you're not waiting for the governments. I know that you are successfully doing this despite the governments. But if you had to have the government help, what would that look like? What would be helpful to you? Let me start it with Mr. Ayala.
Yes, thank you. The first part of your question is to, why does one do it? I think when you're trying to broaden your market and touch lower income groups, there's a lot that revolves around the question of building trust. And in my own traditional business education, which was a long time ago, I really felt that component of doing business in an emerging market was not there at the time. It's now become much more commonplace. So building trust means working with the community in a completely different way. Our friend from Peru talked about, agents, students, and women. Our friend from Mexico talked about a whole different way of giving out loans and working with others through the cement company. Our friend from Indonesia was looking at the whole restructuring of the supply chain to engage a lot of farmers. It's all about building trust. And if you're going to touch individuals at these other price points and become part of their market, I think the whole issue of trust is very important. So that's one element. The second part of your question was, what can people do to strengthen this new world of inclusiveness? My feeling, and I said this earlier in a dialogue that a number of us had, it's not about rules and regulations. It's actually just about infrastructure that facilitates the movement of people, goods, and services and brings prices down. The one thing that government can produce and be a catalyst in is to overweight significantly their investment in all the pieces of infrastructure that bring costs down. Many countries have achieved it, others have not, and I think that's what's necessary to be able to encourage inclusivity. Inclusivity is about getting whole new actors in the economic game. Those actors cannot participate if they cannot travel, if they cannot move goods, and if they cannot sell in non-traditional ways. And so that would, I think, be the best contribution that a government could do. The rest, I think the business sector and private sector initiatives can handle. Thank you.
Frank?
I think I agree to that. I just like to add up basically. The key, very important things probably on the government, more to us is the local government, the lower part. It's not the central. The local government, the central is just acknowledging. I think the local is very important to facilitate. I think that is one is added, not rule, not regulation on that. The thing why there are the government on that, we are corporate, we relate with a lot of people. Then there is a balance on the political side of that, and that might be a problem that corporate facing to that relation, because it's direct and we're bringing up the income of these out of our own inclusive business. I think that we have to get rid of those uncomfortability on the political parties, government, and I think that's the most important things on as regard to that. Of course, the challenge is trust building. The added assistance would be the best would be from the university students. That's normally that we collaborate with them when we approach and reaching the society. I think the small medium enterprise we used to go together also with universities, and they study for us. We hope that further later on they will study on the impacts. I think that's added to that. Thank you.
César, si usas un ejemplo de los productos, habla de un producto y el rol del gobierno y el producto.
Sí, mira, Marco, tu pregunta es muy buena y me permite hablar con mucha libertad, porque estoy seguro, eso espero, no hay ningún político acá de Perú y cuando regrese a mi país no pueda ingresar de repente. No, eso es una broma, pero viéndonos al tema de tu pregunta muy importante, la labor del gobierno es fundamental. Hace 30 años en Perú hubo un gobierno que dio una ley con el cual dio inicio a todo el proceso de microfinanzas en Perú. Perú es uno de los países más desarrollados en América del Sur en microfinanzas y fue producto de una sola ley. Lo que yo creo que los gobiernos más deben dar son políticas claras. Es lo más importante. Claro que nos pueden dar infraestructura también, porque tienen recursos y pueden generar más negocios. Eso es muy importante. Pero las políticas de un gobierno claras, con sentido, con coherencia, es lo que yo más pido a él, lo que un gobierno pueda entender. Claro que hay circunstancias, hay gobiernos que salen, hay otros que entran, hay cosas que se entienden y otras no. Pero vayamos a la realidad. Y me pedías un ejemplo, Marcos. En Perú hay muchísima deficiencia, hay poca legislación en el tema de la construcción de las viviendas. Hay cero política prácticamente. Nos hemos pasado años tratando de hacerle entender al gobierno, y quizás es una lucha permanente, pero hay que seguir haciéndolo, de cuáles son las reglas o las políticas en vivienda que el Estado debería dar, que el gobierno debería dar en Perú. Pero esas ineficiencias del gobierno generan oportunidades de negocios para los privados. Entonces, cuando nos dimos cuenta que el Estado no iba a sacar las normas que esperábamos y los pobladores, los peruanos, se dieron cuenta que el Estado no le iba a solucionar su problema habitacional, nosotros como privados entramos y pudimos desarrollar productos crediticios que vayan a este segmento de mercado, y para mí fue una gran oportunidad de negocios que hoy en día me significan como 600 millones de cartera, y colocar 130.000 créditos a la microempresa para la vivienda en solo un año. Muchísimo negocio, porque los créditos para la vivienda son los primeros que se pagan. Hay una prioridad en el pago y la mora es muy baja. Hace unos años, 5 o 6 años en Perú, el gobierno empezó a desarrollar obras de ampliaciones de redes y agua en las ciudades más importantes de Perú. Pero el gobierno le interesó o no si las personas, las familias se conectaban al servicio y si dentro de sus viviendas tenían o no la mejora sanitaria. Las familias pasaba el agua por la puerta de la casa y a las justas conectaba un caño para tener el agua y de donde irrigar a su vivienda. No hacía ninguna mejora más. Para el banco fue una oportunidad, yo le financio. Voy y entonces le financio la mejora de su lavatorio, de su baño, de su cocina, y eso está generando muchísimo negocio. Entonces, si el Estado está ausente, el sector privado puede estar presente, no necesariamente por filantropía. Es negocio, es mucho negocio, pero hay que saber encontrar el sentido de esto y la forma de llegar que trascienda y que vaya a generar esos dólares que necesitamos para seguir ampliando nuestro negocio. Sí.
Arturo, Patrimonio is in 5 countries. You want to start in the Philippines, so you had to deal with 5 governments, perhaps a 6th one here. How does that work? You know, which one had the better environment, or is it actually the absence of a government that is the best?
I will not elaborate on that, but let me tell you, Marcos, building on what you were asking on why we are involved is as CEMEX's business strategy is to be deeply involved in the developing on sustainable communities. And on the specific your question on how the governments can help, probably, and building on what Cesar was mentioning, is our program, Patrimonio, is allowing helping the people to have better quality of life because of the housing. But what if the government, also understanding the needs and the capabilities of the low-income people, could define a strategy that is for the other part, which is the infrastructure for those areas in which these people are building their houses. So probably tailoring made something that could support that the strategy could work. And in regards of the 5 countries and here in the Philippines, we understand once we are bringing different business from other countries and we are replicating here in the Philippines, we are understanding that we have a clear, well, the characteristics of the countries are somehow similar and the approach could be similar. That's why we have been able to replicate successfully and we expect to do the same here in the Philippines. Thank you, Marcos.
Let me ask one last round here, and then we can see if there's anybody in the audience. What is your investment plans, for this? So how much do you see a growth going of your investment plan? And Mr. Ayala, for you, a little question about the APEC. What is the likelihood the APEC is really going to take this inclusive business as one of its core issues for the next few years? And would that make a difference?
I think our friend from the IFC was saying it earlier. There is a whole new recognition that the traditional business models have to change. It is of little use to have GNP and GDP of our countries growing if the people affected by it are just a small component of that economy. I think what's being put forward, and certainly there was a framework presented today, but each of us in this panel are tackling it in different ways, of engaging our broader community of suppliers, of buyers, of workers in whole new ways that brings them into the formal economy. I think many people are realizing that that's the secret to an economy that works and that survives over the long term. I think for APEC to take this and say, this is a new model of doing things, it's inclusive, it's sustainable, it engages more people, it's good for the economy. At the same time, it builds trust between the people who put capital to work and the people who work as part of that system and the people who receive goods from that system. That whole ecosystem builds trust. It doesn't destroy trust. And I think if APEC puts it forward as a model that can succeed long term, then I think people will look and aspire to participate in it, and I think it's good for all of us and for our economies.
Bill, I know we are late in time. Do I open or do we just end it now? All right, so I want you all to congratulate our panels and thank you all for coming.
Marcos, and thank you for the panel. Now I'm going to, I do a couple of things here. First, I'd like to invite the speakers and the SOMs, the senior officials and the undersecretaries to come up here for the photograph. And while they're having their photograph, the rest of you lucky ones get to have coffee. So speakers, and of course I need Dr. Alan Bollard up here as well, senior officials, the undersecretaries, all up here for the photograph. Do we have everyone balanced? Oh, yep. ASEC Feb, step in there. Up here behind Jaime, Feb, there. Okay. Stand by your markers. Faye, you look very tall there.